What's up, my comic comrades? We're just about a week away from the debut of Marvel Studios' new Moon Knight series on Disney+. And before we start the weekly live-action Khonshu goodness, we're here to serve up a bunch of Moon Knight-themed content. So we're kicking things off today by breaking down just how powerful Moon Knight is. Now, I will say off the bat, Moon Knight is not a powerhouse like the Hulk or anything even close to that, but he does have some pretty cool feats. So let's go over several of those today to demonstrate just how powerful, agile, and skilled Moon Knight is. Now, before getting into a bunch of examples of Moon Knight's feats in comics, I do want to say we have seen him gain supernatural powers like enhanced strength during full moons. He's also been seen to have the ability to drain energy from his opponents through physical contact. I just figured I'd go over that for people who weren't familiar with his powers and abilities at all. But we actually did a full-on History of episode of the character, which you could find right here to learn all about it. With that said, let's get into it. First, we have the time Moon Knight was chained to a wall and just snapped the chains, as well as ripped the brick holding the chains in place out of the wall. Moon Knight even says, "On my way in, I took note of the moon. It was full. When the moon is full, Moon Knight is nothing to sneeze at," which is an old school way of saying he's not to be trifled with. Moving along, he's also wrestled and literally just tossed a jaguar with his legs. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know any normal human who could just wrestle a 210-pound cat with nothing but their bare hands. Dude even punched a hole right through a metal shield. Or as Moon Knight himself says, "I rammed right through his shield like cotton candy and it hardly grazed my knuckles. Didn't realize my increased strength could do this." His punches and kicks even fly men back, all Captain America Winter Soldier style. Now, this next one may not seem like a big deal, but it really is. He shattered a gun just by stepping on it, like it literally broke into pieces. Now, guns are primarily made of different types of metal, right? So imagine how strong you have to be to stomp on a gun for it to break into pieces, because last time I checked, metal doesn't necessarily break into pieces. It usually just bends unless an incredible force forces it to explode, which would be Moon Knight's foot. Speaking of leg and foot strength, we have seen him kick down a reinforced metal door in a jail cell like it was nothing. And not overly impressive, but we've also seen him snap a shield agent's arm like it was a strand of uncooked spaghetti. But I'll give you some examples of him fighting some formidable characters. For instance, Moon Knight has fought Venom several times in the comics and has either got away or fought him to a standstill, which says a lot considering Venom is easily upper tier as far as power and strength goes in the Marvel Universe. And after what Donny Cates did to Venom, you could say he's one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, period. We've also seen Moon Knight fight off several heroes and characters at the same time, such as Beast, Daredevil, Black Knight, She-Hulk, Iron Man, Gambit, Nova, Mr. Fantastic, and more. For me, this is actually one of the most impressive things he's done on the list, and we're not even done yet. I mean, think about it. Evading and getting the best of several of those Avengers and X-Men characters all at the same time is insane. Now, we all know that the Hobgoblin is one of Spider-Man's greatest foes, and an incredibly strong and formidable one at that. But once Hobgoblin started attacking Moon Knight saying, "Come on, Spectre, I'm waiting for you," Moon Knight just attacked him by kicking him from behind before holding him up by the throat saying, "What do you want with Spectre?" After this, he proceeds to, as The Rock would say, lay the smackdown on Hobby. But something way more impressive than that is fighting Dr. Doom and somewhat easily evading his attacks. After a pretty decent fight between Doom and Moon Knight just stands up with a little bit of smoke coming off his cape before giving him the amulet that Doom wants and then walks away. Not many people could fight Doom in the Marvel Universe and live to talk about it, let alone fight him and essentially not have a hard time doing so. Spectre took a full-on blast from Dr. Doom and got right back up and even dodged several of his attacks. Dude is so badass, one time he was beating the crap out of someone and then someone shot an arrow at him with a crossbow from behind, but he heard it coming and caught it in midair, even though he didn't see it. It's just a really cool, brutal feat. Moon Knight even once pinned a guy who was trying to run away from him to a wall by his ear using a crescent dart. And as the man is screaming, "Please, please," Moon Knight gets up close to him saying, "Stop your groveling." Speaking of random thugs, he once threw one into a brick wall so hard the dude's imprint was inside the wall, all Looney Tunes style. And while we're on the topic of walls, he once punched Shadowland Daredevil right through a wall. Brutal, but definitely shows how strong he is. One time he was gliding chasing after bad guys and he just landed on the front of their Jeep, literally stomping it into the ground as if it was made out of aluminum foil. That's straight up something the Hulk would do, just smash the front half of a car into the ground. One of my favorite things Moon Knight has done, which we've seen several times in the comics, is cut bullets in half with his crescent darts. Once when a bad guy was shooting at him, he says, "Why can't I hit you?" And Moon Knight says, one of the most badass things ever, "I'm not real," as he cuts his bullets in half. Then you have Shang-Chi, the best fighter in the Marvel Universe, even complimenting Moon Knight, saying he's skilled, which means a heck of a lot coming from the best fighter in all of Marvel. But he's not the only one to comment on Moon Knight's skill. The Punisher has commented on him as well, saying he's fast and quiet, he's a natural. The thugs don't even hear whisper. I could have picked them off from the hill, but he wanted to do it this way, essentially saying that Moon Knight is one of the most skilled stealth fighters around. Now, there's a ton more I could say about Moon Knight, but I'm going to leave you guys with two final scenarios, as they're two of my favorite instances that show how completely badass and powerful Moon Knight is. First one being when Moon Knight fought Deadpool. the two have an epic battle that goes from a hospital and somehow ends up in a house of mirrors. Once in the fun house of mirrors, Moon Knight throws his crescent darts at Deadpool and then says, "Wait a minute, can't be killed?" as he throws a bunch of them to get the job done. But Deadpool says, "Hello, healing factor." At this point, Moon Knight gets extremely pissed off and pulls out his sword saying, "Game on," as he starts laying into Deadpool, with him ultimately jumping on top of him, slicing him into pieces, with Deadpool even saying, "Uncle." On the final panel, we see Moon Knight walking out of the funhouse saying, "I needed that." So yeah, Moon Knight completely wrecked Deadpool and proved he's the better fighter. And lastly, we have the time Moon Knight fought Taskmaster. As we all know, Taskmaster can mimic fighting styles, but that didn't prove to be beneficial when he was fighting Moon Knight, because no matter what he did to Moon Knight, like shooting him with arrows several times, it wasn't stopping him, all while saying, "Die, I can beat you, I'm better than you, I'm so much better than you. You can't win, you have to die." Then while holding his sword to Moon Knight's face, he just tells Taskmaster, "Yes, kill me. See if that works this time." Taskmaster just trembles in fear, like this guy is nuts, saying, "Leave me alone, leave me alone." With Moon Knight saying, in the end, they all beg for mercy, all except the best of them. They beg, still not realizing what they're dealing with. Moon Knight then brings one of his crescent darts close to Taskmaster's face as he's pleading, "Please make it stop." But instead of cutting Taskmaster's face, he just rips off his mask. We then see Taskmaster's face all bloody and terrified, but Moon Knight ultimately lets him go just to get the point across that he's not to be trifled with. So yeah, Moon Knight is a freaking monster. I always thought of him to be like a supernatural, more violent Batman. I mean, just those two examples alone, taking down Deadpool and Taskmaster, shows you how insanely skilled this dude is. Regardless, I hope this all gave you a better understanding of how powerful and crazy the character is. I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do with him in the MCU, but luckily for us, we don't have to wait that long to find out. And now it's your turn. Let us know what some of your favorite Moon Knight feats are in the comment section below. First up for the week of the 23rd, we have Star Wars Darth Vader issue 21. A figure terrifyingly close to Vader's dark heart returns, but with a shocking new allegiance that threatens total chaos. The band of heroes who have bound themselves to Vader's cause finally learn the true nature of their new lord. Next up, we have Gunslinger Spawn issue 6. Clown, along with Violator and his razor-toothed minions, continues to torment a weakened gunslinger. This just may be his last rodeo. Here we have Robin issue 12, Demons vs. Detective. The Lazarus tournament is over, and Damian returns to Gotham a changed hero. But there's one last opponent he might fight to the death: himself. This lead-in issue to the epic Shadow War event is one you don't want to miss. Now we have Maestro World War M issue 2, Battle at Pacifica. The Maestro is out for revenge against those who attacked him, which has led him straight to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, right into the underwater city ruled by Submariner Namor. And finally, we have Godzilla vs. the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 1. Plain and simple, this is an epic crossover many of us nerds never knew we wanted. Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And the first issue was a great start. And that's gonna bring today's episode to a close. But if you dug this episode, check out this one right here. And if you like all of our videos, like, subscribe, comment. It helps the channel grow. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.